Hello everyone and welcome on board to RGV Aerial Photography Starbase Flyover Review Episode 3. This is Mauricio and today we'll be covering updates at SpaceX Starbase facilities cruising at an altitude of 10,500 feet. These photos were taken Saturday, May the 20th, and we will also include a sneak peek of the latest flyover images taken on May 26th. Our final destination will be the launch site, with overflights starting at Massey's test site, Sanchez, and build site, so fasten your seatbelts and enjoy the flight. Massey's test site, a former gun range now used by SpaceX to test prototypes and production articles, including ships and hopefully soon, boosters. Comparing the flyover on May 16th to 4 days later on Saturday, May the 20th, there have been a few notable changes. As SpaceX ramps up production of Starship's first stage Super Heavy booster, it appears they plan to cryogenically test new boosters at Massey's rather than at the launch site. This can be seen by the construction of the booster cryo station, where SpaceX will test each booster's ability to hold cryogenic liquids under pressure. This is also known as cryoproofing. Here we see the now exposed pilings for the stand mentioned earlier, so be on the lookout for a concrete pad to be poured in the coming weeks. This means we can expect booster or ship testing to happen within the next month or so. Let's take a look at the flyover image from May 26, which now features concrete for the base layer of the new test stand. Next week, expect to see additional rebar or the remaining concrete poured on the pad. And in case you're wondering, this new stand appears to be wide enough to indicate it will be used to test boosters, as seen by the booster disconnect here. But there's always a possibility the stand could be used as its own cryo station for ship testing. As noted by the 9 large embeds visible in this image, 3 short of the 12 required for a booster, but just the right amount for ships. Continuing on, we can see the top part of the B6 test article is still tipped over on its side. Enhanced images taken in our last flyover reveal crumpled metal, indicating where specifically the FTS or flight termination system test occurred. Here at the left corner of the steel dome. We also have a better view of the Hesco barrier partly destroyed by the torrent of water from B6 following the FTS test. Next, nose cone 31's black test tip has been removed. This shows that the removal of NC31 is underway, following its test to failure a few weeks ago. These lines allowed for pressurization of approximately less than 1 bar differential, or 1 atmosphere, to help test the structural rigidity of the system during actual flight loads. Moving to the left, we look at the can crusher with test article S26.1 sitting atop 6 hydraulic thrust rams positioned underneath, which SpaceX uses to simulate or exceed flight loads. We can see the test article has been connected to ground service equipment used for its cryo test, with 2 tests taking place this week on Tuesday, May 23rd and Thursday, May 25th. Looking at the tank farm on the far left of our perspective, we can see progress on the rebar framework for the 4 pedestals. This quad pad support will allow additional horizontal storage tanks to be installed. A second cryosphere has been installed next to the first, with one of the 2 vaporizers being lifted into place next to them. We can see additional cryogenic piping being installed going towards the can crusher. Next is the ship puck shucking station, located at pad C2. Even more construction was observed in this flyover, with the hold-down clamps for ships now being added, as well as a 3 T-shaped armed steel structure made of I-beams, located above the 3 central thrust ramps. It appears to be part of a load cell and calibration system for the 3 sea-level hydraulic ramps, similar to this structure that looks like a pair of pants. Moving to the right-hand side of Massey's, we see test tank B7.1, which previously underwent can crushing testing earlier this year and last year. Next to it is a cap for the can crusher, used for pulling down on the test article to simulate booster flight loads. And we can also see this adapter ring. It's used to mount test articles that lack booster hold-down clamp points onto the can crusher. Lastly, we end the tour of Massey's by looking to the top of the image. We are still waiting for any sign of movements from these 3 horizontal cryogenic liquid storage tanks. These were moved from Kennedy Space Center several months ago and are possibly awaiting installation on the pedestals, as mentioned earlier. Now departing the Massey's test site with our next layover at Sanchez. Starting in Sanchez at the left-hand corner is the old United's rentals lot. Now standing upright is a 5-legged stand, shown here, measuring 12.5 feet cubed. This structure is a multi-level enclosure with an arc segment curve. Based on the construction, it's meant to fit 2 single 9-meter rings to make a double ring if the welder is placed inside, or will be used to create a quad if placed on the top. The stand will likely be used inside the Starfactory for production. In this area, an assortment of other parts can be seen. Here are booster transport stands pieces from KSC here, a water deluge pipe, a load spreader, ring transport stand ring segments, and parts of the second mega bay. Moving over, Booster 8's thrust section is slowly collecting rainwater, waiting to be scrapped. Next, we have these 2 booster transport stands which have been upgraded with new vertical supports. These vertical supports indicate additional loading can be placed on them, such as massive loads, while the booster undergoes crowd test. These transport stands can be used temporarily as a part of a drop-in-place crowd station, bolted down to crowd pads such as a new pad at Massey's previously discussed. Over here, we see that 3 of the water-cooled steel plates for the OLM have been adjusted and aligned to the main feed pipes, as evidenced by the forklift. The tarps are used as covers to assist in welding to keep shielding gas from blowing away. On our most recent flyover from Friday, May 26, we can see that work is still continuing on integrating 3 steel plates with 3 water supply manifolds. If you've been following the construction of the water-cooled steel plates, you'll be interested in a new theory on this later in the video. Jumping forward in time to the new pictures taken on the 26th, a few mystery parts were spotted next to the inventory tent and moved a few hours later right next to the water-cooled steel plates. On further analysis, we believe that these parts are likely intended to be used as parts of the bracing for the water-cooled steel plate. Courtesy of the space engineer, we have a render showing how these parts will be connected to the entire structure. Let us know if you agree with our analysis in the comment section. We now see that the pipework for the steel plate system's water supply tanks are now being painted white, and another long length of pipe has been assembled nearby. Moving on up to the new mega bay section construction and staging area, all 4 corner structural members of the second level have been completed, with the exterior cladding being the only remaining parts left to be installed. These corner sections are staged and pre-built here to save time for building construction. Otherwise, more frequent and longer trips would be needed to go up and down to install all the segments and cladding. Looking at the flyover photos from May 26, we see that additional gray cladding has been added to the sections, with construction starting on the 5th segment for the 3rd level of the new mega bay. Now departing Sanchez with our next layover to the build site. As the name suggests, it's to build, construct, and vertically assemble the 50-meter and 70-meter tall Starship and Super Heavy boosters or other similar test articles like these. The LR 1300 has made swift progress in erecting the new megabay's first layer. The later sections will be stacked onto the corners by the new LR 11000 that will switch out with the LR 1300. And now the LR 11000 crane is staged and being assembled in front of the new mega bay, seen here in the most recent flyover pictures from Friday, May 26. Both these cranes came from Florida Roberts Road facility, the same as the steel for the new gray colored mega bay with the white structural steel. The 3 culverts have been completed. These will allow for fewer constraints on the mega bay's construction. Long term, the culverts are vital for stormwater runoff, handling approximately 25% of the build site running from the rain yard into the mudflats. The electrical conduit running to the current Starfactory has been buried with culverts. Rebar has shown up, indicating concrete is soon to follow, covering it all. Right across from the new mega bay is the mid bay. What we believe to be part of HLS has been stacked onto Ship 22's nose cone, with employees on a man left working inside of it. As seen from these renders by the space engineer, S-22's nose cone was lifted onto the ring that houses the decagon structure and dome discussed in last week's video. This ring is the white E-dome section with the HLS hardware inside of it, and is speculated to be used as a structural support and bulkhead for the airlock. This is yet another promising sign that SpaceX is making progress on Starship's interior design. Moving to the ring section located in front of the mid-bay, on our most recent flyover this Friday, we observed the prototype ring section that resembles what looks like window cutouts. This is an exciting development as SpaceX readies the interior of Starship to carry crew for the Artemis moon landings. As more progress of the Starship lunar lander is made by SpaceX, we'll update you on any further developments in the weeks to come. Moving to the area behind the high bay, half of the parking lot behind the high bay has been cleared out and roped off. In the place of parked cars is staging for module mobile office structure units, which are not being assembled. The office units are most likely replacements for this side of the site, as these offices behind the ground fabrication building are being displaced. The reason why is evident by everything in this area around the ground fabrication building being rapidly cleared out and dismantled, including the solar panels, their supports, and the shipping containers that held them were removed too. Until last week, this area here was being used to create transport stand rings at an open-air welding station. However, this week welding operations ceased, as the welding stations have also been removed. Despite everything being cleared out, it didn't stop the ground fabrications teams from popping out these transport stand rings. Transport stands are limited and essential base components to help the Starship production process, allowing bulky 9-meter rings to move around the production facilities and stations quickly and efficiently. If we take a look at the May 26 flyover, we can see that the old white production building used for all pipework assembly for the boosters and ships is starting to be demolished. In addition, as you can see in the latest ground shots, the ground fabrication building is being dismantled. In the future, all pipework assembly as well as production of ground equipment is going to be done in the Starfactory. Next, we'll move on to the expansion of Phase 2 of the Starfactory, where SpaceX will manufacture rings and other necessary components for needed production of Starship and Super Heavy boosters. With the number of changes listed, Elon confirmed our theory that the Starfactory expansion originates all these changes. All buildings on the left-hand side will slowly disappear. If the Phase 2 section of the Starfactory building fills in the entire left side, it will be an estimated 400,000 square feet. If it replaces the tents too, it will be 720,000 square feet. But why close production facilities despite a ramp-up in production starships and components? Therein lies the answer. Per Elon's original estimate to colonize Mars, 1,000 starships are needed. Therefore, an increase of 2 orders of magnitude in starship production is required. Per Elon, the goal will go from a few starships yearly to 1 every 3 days. This must be the manufacturing goal. That's just over 120 starships a year. A massive rocket factory for prototyping and mass production will be needed here to reach and colonize Mars. And the Starfactory will be the answer. We have nearly reached our final destination, the launch site. This is where SpaceX tests, integrates, and launches the Starship rocket. Along the way, the road to the launch site is Highway 4. There has been power line expansion towards the launch site with a trench dug beside the highway. The 3-phase power lines are phasing out most diesel power generators at the launch site. Here is a comparison before on May 16th and after on May 20th. Moving along and to the right, we can see suborbital pads A and B. The area around test stand A is currently used as a pipe assembly area. The final destination for this piping has yet to be determined. However, it may be either used as part of test stand A's overhaul or for the new horizontal cryogenic storage tanks. Meanwhile, right next door on the test stand B, Ship 25 can still be observed connected to the LR 11,000 crane, following up Ship 25's rollout last week. This allows employees to work safely within the ship's tanks while the ship is unpressurized. This is a precaution, as the ship can hold structural stability even when not under pressure, but you can never be too safe. This in preparation for Ship 25 static fire testing and certification for its flight to space on top of Booster 9, whose flights were confirmed in the flight recap posted by SpaceX on Friday. Also confirmed on Friday was a tentative launch date of Starship's second flight. According to Elon Musk, major launch pad upgrades should be complete in about a month. then another month of rocket testing on the pad, then Flight 2 of Starship. So keep an eye out for testing of Ship 25 and Booster 9 in the weeks and months to come. The pressure is on to get Starship flying again as soon as possible. Tell us what you think in the comment section below. Do you think Elon's prediction of 2 months is realistic? When do you think Starship will launch? We move next to the new horizontal storage tank foundations for the orbital tank farm. This week, we spotted additional rebar being staged near the edges of both of the foundations as SpaceX gets ready to construct the concrete pedestals for the new vacuum-insulated hot dog tanks. These will eventually replace the vertical LOX tanks whose shells were damaged by Starship's maiden flight. This week, workers completed removing the old construction elevator used for operations and maintenance for the tower. It was removed due to an accident over a month ago on Sunday, April 16th, before the first flight attempt. The counterweight had broken loose and crashed through the tower. No workers were directly present or injured. A new elevator replacement was delivered to the launch site on Monday, May 22nd, replacing this old one, as seen by the footage courtesy of HoopCam. Moving down the tower, we can still see damaged cladding panels. Though we've seen the blast panels get pulled, they were replaced with the same sections just out of order. Up next is the area where SpaceX is assembling their water deluge system. Combined with the steel plates mentioned earlier, it will hopefully prevent what happened to Stage 0 with Starship's first integrated flight. And if you watched our last video, you'll know that additional water supply pipework was delivered to the site. This week, those various pipes are starting to be assembled together with elbows on their ends. In addition, we can observe that the black high-pressure gas cylinders have been fully racked and stacked on top of each other. After staging last week, these are one of the 2 concrete pedestals behind the 4 horizontal water storage tanks. These and the white tanks are also part of the water deluge system. They will deliver high-pressure gas to push the water through the tanks and into the rest of the piping all the way through to the water-cooled steel plates. Right next to the launch tower sits the orbital launch mount, where Starship sits before launch. The booster hold-down clamps are still missing and red covers over the recently reinstalled Raptor quick disconnects. Holes have been opened up in the top of the launch ring shielding, likely for the reinstallation of the stabilization pins. We'll talk more about those later. Moving downwards, even more pilings have been installed around the OLM, although the exact number is uncertain due to various machinery obscuring our view. Thanks to the space engineer, we now have exciting new visualizations that showcases our latest theory regarding the functioning of the water-cooled steel plates within the OLM. In our observations in Sanchez, we have identified only 3 primary water supply pipes directly connected to the water-cooled steel plates. Depending on site readiness, this will be ready for installation in a week or 2. The new theory capitalizes on these 3 observed direct supply pipes, channeling water into 3 water-cooled steel plates and directing it towards the center, dispersing into all 6 segments and back out the edges of the other 3. The principle at play is that the movement of the fluids from areas of high to low pressure, enabling the interconnected plates to distribute the high pressure outflow more evenly. This current theory starkly contrasts to conventional understanding, with a ring of pipes evenly delivering water from all 6 directions inwards, as again, only 3 manifolds have been seen. And thanks to the space engineer, we have these fantastic comparisons of the 2. Wrapping up this week's tour of the launch site, we'll look at the area around the orbital tank farm. Following IF-2-1, the stabilization pins have been removed and laid on the ground in front of the methane storage tanks, as seen here. These pins guide the booster being lowered onto and off the OLM to protect the outer 20 engines. We expect a longer and better protected version of them to be reinstalled soon. On the left side, we see where the 4 diesel generators used to be. Since 2020, they have been vital for power generation at the launch site, but they've been removed as the 3-phase power lines mentioned earlier are being laid along the side of Highway 4 and will take over the role providing the launch site with power. And that's it for episode 3 of Starbase Flyover Review. Thank you for choosing to fly with RGV aerial photography, and I hope you all enjoyed the flight. If you like what you saw today, please subscribe for more episodes and content so you don't miss out on the new videos each week. I'm Mauricio, and I'll see you next week from 10,500 feet. That's all for now.